I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. As always, we promise a robust conversation. I'm pleased to have joining me as co-host today, my friend and one of the people I admire so much, happens to be a relative of mine, Kenya McKnight. Kenya leads the Black Women's Wealth Alliance and so much more. She's an entrepreneur, a force multiplier, bringing opportunity, possibility to the lives of Black women, the lives of Black families, to the lives of the Black community, and ultimately bringing a positive set of experiences and opportunity to humanity. Kenya, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I am doing just fine.
Okay,
how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's always good to be in conversation with you here. You know, and what I want to do, we've got a couple of guests here who are going to be focusing on heart health and issues of heart, women, men, families. We'll talk about that. You're going to be with me for the whole hour, co-host today, and so thank you for that. And we're setting up so that you'll be here with me on a regular basis, monthly. And my intention and my desire is that you're able to bring in some of those lights that you've discovered, that you've helped nourish and grow, and some of the voices that deserve space, deserve elevation, and that together we will try to create a new narrative, a new dialogue about who we are and what we're doing and why we do what we do, and about the victories that we expect and that we will attain in the work that we do. So I'm excited. Let me start, though, by asking you to give people an update. Let's give them Black Women's Wealth Alliance 101. Give the story, the background.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So, thank you so much for the, time and space, to be here to share and continue to build with community. Long time, community member. I've, grew up on the North Side, since I was an 8-year-old, and I've worked in community since I was a 20-some-year-old, doing a variety of different things. And I know, Al, you and I have worked together in, policy work, just politics, my run for office, all sorts of things. And over the years of working as a fierce advocate and, just a person who cared about moving Northside forward, from education, housing, whatever, and even my time working at Neon in its inception, I cared a lot about the economic plight of the North Side, but most of all, Black people, no matter where we were. And that led me to a lot of things, working across regions and many things that for me, 11 years ago, resulted in me founding the Black Women's Wealth Alliance. I spent some time in Oakland working as an intern at Policy Link, and I just had gotten exposed to so many things, even prior to. I've had a calling on my life, to be honest, to work with Black women for very, very long. Before I even started all this community work, I didn't know how to do it. And so I ended up doing all this other work, and which is fine. But in the end, it led me back to my original calling. My uncle would always press on me about working with Black women. And it just hit me in 2014 that I needed to take that step. And when I went to Oakland, it became even more clear as I learned about Black wealth and the role of Black women and influencing Black money. And I came back and I talked to a lot of friends and colleagues and pulled them together at a meeting at McDonald's on West Broadway to talk about wealth and talk about finances, really, because we didn't know much about wealth then. It was just finances. And that's how we began. And it was a story right there. And we met at McDonald's on West Broadway every week for about 6 months. And we moved it into my apartment complex, the community room. And from there, we began to build and really the foundation of what was important for Black women in Minnesota. And from there, that was in 2014. And so we created Minnesota's first report on the economic status of Black women. So in 2016, so we did a couple years of work, research, and figuring things out. And from there, the Black Women's Business Alliance was born out of that work. And the next level of the work was the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, which is where I emerged as the leader for that, as someone who brought everybody together to begin, but also the person who, they commissioned to lead the next phase of the work. And the truth is, the table that was putting together the foundation, truly needed everything the Black Women Wealth Alliance was trying to do, and it was just too heavy to lift the table with those needs. So we had to take a step back and move forward in the new direction of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, which is what we do. So in summary, we've centered on a few things that we do: provide education. Basically, our goal is to expand generational Black wealth in the Black family. That includes our children and men and our communities at large. And the role of Black women in our world is that Black women at that time controlled nearly 60% of the total Black dollar. And in order for us to, effectively build Black wealth in our community, we had to have a better sense of responsibility, of what we understand about our power economically as Black women, our influence, and be intentional about how we use it to build our communities, and build wealth of our communities. And so on that note and premises, the Black Women's Wealth Alliance decided to organize around wealth education, teaching Black women to take control of their finances. But also we did a lot of different programs like housing, business, etc. So to date, all of that to say, what we do now is still wealth education, but we're focused a lot on career development and helping entrepreneurs, students, and those in the workforce understand how to build good, prosperous careers that are centered on wealth building. And we do that through our B Pathways program. We still have wealth tools, and then we have the Hopewell Foundation, where we provide small capacity grants to people. So that is the work of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance. So that's background, a little bit of work, current, over 5,000 women served, over $2 million invested, and we're still going strong today.
That's fantastic. Kenya, I'm fascinated by the story of your personal transformation. And I'd love to sit with that for a second. You said that, you were looking for the mission, or the mission was looking for you. I think that you both were sort of operating, and then you had the opportunity to gain insights and to gain awareness when you visited Oakland. So let me do two parts of that. One is, if you would describe, tell me the narrative of what Kenya was doing and thinking before the Oakland trip. You mentioned that you were trying to figure out how to fit in. What was the motive? What was the desire? What was the instruction on your life at that time before you found the place that gave you the answer?
I was all over the place, in my work, after my job with Neon, and even before that, as a younger person, I just was exploring everything. And what was true is that I centered on just, my community. I cared, and I would push for accountability and resources. And I tried to run for office. That didn't work. I would show up at meetings. I would do whatever I could to be a voice of reason, of change, and of just what I thought was important to move the community forward. And I was all over the place at all meetings, doing all kind of stuff. Then I became a Bush Fellow in 2012, and a Hubert H. Humphrey Fellow. And those two fellowships really shifted me a lot. And the Humphrey specifically took me from the corners of the North Side to the corners of the world. And that was a big transformational change for me right there in my perspective and understanding global policy and the impact on local communities, et cetera. And I also became a member of the Minnesota Transportation Advisory Board, the first African-American appointed there in 2011.
Did you actually travel the world as part of that, or did you travel as part of your study?
I traveled to DC with the Hubert H. Humphrey. And in my work with the TAB and Met Council Transportation Advisory Board, I traveled across the state, but I also went to, parts of the country. And you learn something very different about regional development, planning, policy. And it was a whole different game that helped me understand that what I was doing on the local level was great, but it was nowhere near the way this really works and how government is planning, investing, and really like just where the gap is and how they really build real wealth. And I thought, I'm playing the wrong game here. And I didn't know what to do about it because it's complex. The work we do in community matters, but there's a whole different level of work that's happening that we're not aware of or engaged in enough because it's hard, it's technical. You got to have money and resources to play in that, which we're still trying to figure out these local crises we're in. So it was mind-boggling to be a part of the Humphrey and to have the freedom and support that the Bush Fellowship allowed, because I didn't gain a lot of leadership there. It was just the freedom to explore and being financially supported while I did it to grow, even though I made it about my transportation work at the tab. But that also took me to Oakland, and I got to see Angela, Blackwell Glover, the CEO and founder, every day, watching this Black woman.
Angela, what was her name?
Blackwell Glover. So
Okay.
she's the wife of the actor Danny Glover. So she's the CEO and founder, what she was at the time. She's the founder, though, of PolicyLink, and it was in Oakland. And they have a few chapters, but they did a lot of social equity work, and they were working with the Obama administration. So it was fascinating watching them put together, strategies, racial equity and social equity strategies for economic justice for Black and other communities of color across the country through their work with the Obama administration, which I got to be a part of. And I'm watching this, and my work was across 144 different regions, where I'm responsible for making sure I understand what their plans are, getting them connected to tools, to advance racial equity in places like Maine, where there's only like 1% Black population. I mean, all these different places. And it was just fascinating to watch and be a part of this big work. And I came back home and I thought, I can't just go back to the same. Like, something has to change. And I got infused. So it's a big story, but I got infused before I left with the work with Black women. But when I came back, I just hit the ground running, because I also was pretty dope in my work here in Minnesota. I was like at the top of, because in this regional work, there's not a lot of Black people or people of color. So I was like it. And plus I was the first Black person to be on this board. So it's a whole different thing. So at the top of my game. But when I got to Oakland, they helped me understand how dusty I was, how behind, how slow we moved. And I didn't stand a chance if I didn't learn how to move, because they move fast. It was a whole different game. And so I was like, ooh, we're getting set up to fail by the way we move in Minnesota, opposed to the way that folks move, in the West Coast and other places around the world, country. So all of that, I'll sum it up and say, I came back and hit the ground running. And I had a lot of questions and conversations and talking to people about things. And from what I saw, I just put together what I thought was necessary. I tried to find the right people to run it, because I didn't think I was qualified, because I was broke. I didn't have the skills. I didn't know enough about wealth or finances. But in the end, it all shaped me to be who I needed to be to qualify myself to be the leader. And not only the leader, but an example of the very thing that I'm working to build with other Black women and across just our communities, because I'm not just a Black leader of Black people. I'm a leader of the work I'm doing in general for all people. And it's taken 11 years to be at this place, but that is the process. And I hit the ground running, and I'm still going.
Zura, talk about that. Is that the right pronunciation? Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, Zura.
Zura, okay.
Yep. In 2021, I purchased a 1200 West Broadway building, Fremont and West Broadway. I was a tenant there for about 4 years before I became the owner. And for me, it was just the next level of my work, because we, done all these programs, we talk about wealth, we do this, and I just needed to step into the next phase of it and to provide opportunity to other Black women entrepreneurs to actually do their work, in an affordable, collective way as much as possible. And to also build out the next level of institution power, which has been a strategy that African Americans have used for centuries in this country. It's part of how we advance the work. So I needed to take that step, and I did. Commissioned by my ancestors, that is the work and what I'm called here to do. And I turned it into holistic wellness, because that was also part of what was really heavy on me, especially during the time of the George Floyd. It felt like we don't have a safe place to be. Where we can connect and access what cultural wellness really means from a place of practice. And I'm talking about acupuncture, massage, Reiki, chakra. I'm talking about hot stones, cupping, Himalayan salt room, apothecary. Like, these are all the things that I have at Zara, that we have going on at Zara. But we didn't have a place where that was normalized beyond having an event or a workshop that you can come and get holistically in one space, where it was also led by Black practitioners who are licensed, experienced, and professional in what we do as an institution, as a movement, collectively. And so it was on my heart and in my spirit to do it. And that's what happened. And I moved into the spirit of Zara because that came to me, from God, that name Zara during, COVID. And I just worked to figure out what it means. And
what does it mean? What does Zara mean?
To be radiant and to flourish like a flower. It's
okay.
feminine in its nature. And the idea is that we balance our world and community with Black feminine healing energy. And that is the premises by which Zara is built. And it's beautiful. It's still coming along. We're going to renovate it, this year, finally. It's taken 4 years to get to this point. We've raised some money to do it. We, closing a gap. We need more, but we're just about there. But it's been a beautiful transformation, and hard, but good and steady.
What a wonderful story. What a wonderful story. So let me just respond to some of the words that you say that resonate with me. One, the most recent one you said was balance. And so what does it mean to have a sense of balance in the world? What is our obligation to shape the world from a lens of intentional balance? And when I say balance, I'm speaking about both the female and male principle. I'm thinking about the principle of peace versus war. I'm thinking about the principle of abundance versus the absence of abundance or lack. I'm thinking about the principle of healing and health versus wellness and infirmity. And so you used the word balance. All those ideas popped in my head. Let me throw it back to you. What does balance mean for you? What is the balance you seek? And how does that tie into your spirit, your sense of what the world is and what it can be?
Yeah, precisely what you said. And so, there's health and healing, right? Health and healing. And there's also culture. I think for me, ultimately, is that, we need to normalize just being okay, right? Normalize, like, what does it mean to take care of yourself, right? Normalize love, right? And receiving. We're givers. We give a lot. We give a lot. We've given a lot over so many years. We give to the world, we've given our lives a lot for this country times over, even though we're not the direct beneficiaries of all the things we give. And so I just really want to center a lot on us being okay and us being able to receive good care for our spirits, right? For our physical bodies. Like, we go and go and go. We're really hardworking. We just go and go and go and go. And we've just been in this go mode for hundreds of years. And being able to just take a step back, even if just for a little bit, to take care of ourselves and be okay with the safety of what it means to be, in our care of ourselves, to take care of ourselves from a lens that makes sense for us. Now we'll serve everybody, but we've got to be able to center on what it means to have a care model for foundational Black Americans, right? We matter. We are a group of people, 42 million strong, right? Of the same people. And, we have a way that we think, we have a way we show up. We are more than just a race, we're a culture. We matter. And in that means we have a way we speak, we think, we live, we operate, and we got a lot of shared experiences, hundreds of years of it. And we need a clear pathway for how we care for ourselves holistically from a healing and health space. And that's part of what Zahra is here to curate. And so the balance for me means that, we've been in this world navigating, going through so much, and we need to reconnect with our ancestor, love, healing, power, energy, right? And they want that connection too. They're always with us, but they want it in a more intentional way that helps revive not only our spirits, but our bodies to empower us to continue along the journey. And this is just part of how we show up. And so the work that we do there, the things that we offer there, it's more than just, I'm going to get a massage, or you're going to get your spirit reinvigorated, right? You're connecting back to ancestor power and love in a whole different and deeper way. And that's necessary for the revitalization we need to help us get through the next phase of the journey that we're on. And so our goal is to build more of these centers across the country, 20 to be exact. But we're starting here on the north side, where it's hard, because where it's the hardest, we've got to have the most love and the deepest, strongest power, and understand that our people have evolved into a broader spiritual space than just the religious realms that we've had, although we acknowledge those and we keep those close to us too. But we got a whole generation of people, particularly younger people, who are more ancestral aligned than they are religious. And we've got to have ways that we can connect with them as well. And so Zahra extends itself to that as well.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane, speaking with my guest and co-host today, Kenya McKnight Ahad. She's the principal in Zahra and also in Black Women's Wealth Alliance and a number of other initiatives that bring awareness, knowledge, generational wealth, and healing to our community. Let me expand the conversation and bring in two guests who work with generational issues as well. The title of their work is Your Heart Beats for Generations, addressing women's heart health disparities. My guests are Abbie Zahler, who's program manager at Hennepin County Public Health, and she focuses on chronic disease prevention and health equity. And along with her, Samantha Lucas-Pipkorn is community health supervisor. She leads initiatives on women's health, heart health, and equity-driven public health programs. Abbie and Samantha, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the rule here is that we're all here together just to talk and to chop it up and to build on each other. And with that, I so much have enjoyed listening to Kenya McKnight, and I'm anxious to see, this is how I work, how we connect the topics, the issues, the stories, the experiences, the expectations, because the goal is the same. The goal is healing, right? Redemption. The goal is peace in our lives. So let me ask you, just with that sort of description, to talk about the work of Hennepin County Public Health, particularly the Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Equity Initiative. Abbie, let me start with you, and welcome.
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having us. It was really interesting to listen to Kenya earlier. I see lots of connections to the kinds of things we're trying to work on in this initiative too. In our area of public health, we work primarily in chronic disease prevention, but we're really trying to do this in partnership with community and with community voice leading at the center and in a really upstream way. So looking at nutritious foods and places to be physically active that are safe and accessible, commercial tobacco prevention, and then really just community mental well-being. And we have many, many community partners, and the Heart Health Initiative is a really key part of this, and I'm just honored to be a part of it and to have Samantha as my partner in it.
Samantha, jump in. Describe the work, if you would.
Yeah, so I think there's something kind of unique about this particular initiative. I'll say that, lots of public health departments have different programming through the years. Something that I've really appreciated about this particular initiative is that it has been community developed and implemented, from the media campaign that hopefully we can share a bit about, to the actual programming itself, that it has been rooted in community and culture, and I think in a really special way. I think it's a unique opportunity, especially given the climate that we're in right now. It's really humbling and a great privilege to me to be able to do this work that is rooted in health equity, and that we're able to have a service mindset, and that the people, the residents of Hennepin County are who we serve.
Let me ask you both to deal with 4 questions. I've shared these with you in notes already, but I'll throw them out for our viewers and listeners to have in mind as you address them. The 4 questions are, number 1, heart disease is the number 1 cause of death for women, yet awareness is low. The question is why? It's question number 1. And then number 2 is how systemic barriers impact women's access to heart disease prevention and care. How does it happen? What barriers are there that prevent or diminish the chance for women to get access to prevention and care? Number 3, what is the role of public health in educating communities and creating better health outcomes? And finally, how do race, income, and geography impact access to health resources? You guys can handle that any way you want to, and can you jump in when you want to as well?
Yeah, so let's start maybe with the focus on women and awareness, and then we can kind of build from there. I think one of the key things for folks to know, and one of the key reasons our campaign is called Your Heart Beats for Generations, is because women are often the caretakers for their families, for their communities, for their neighbors, for their loved ones. And it means women aren't always putting their own care first. And so we're really trying to put that out there and create space and trust and awareness amongst women to really be taking care of themselves so they can continue to be there for their communities and their loved ones. I think the other thing is really medically, some of these heart health symptoms show up very differently than they do in women than they do in men. And I think we often talk about cardiac events and heart attacks like, oh, there's an elephant sitting on your chest or something like that. And that's true if you're men usually, but not in women. It shows up in a lot of different ways. So what you end up hearing when you start talking to women in community about who they know, who's had a heart attack or heart event, which is, I mean, I think sure almost all of us, everybody knows somebody. It shows up differently. It shows up as jaw pain or excessive sweating or weird fatigue or like indigestion in your stomach. Like it shows up very, very differently. And I don't know that we're really talking about that. And so we're here to really normalize the conversation, create connections between women who've had this experience, both to offer support in a mental health and social connected way for women who have this experience, because I think it's very isolating and can be really lonely, and also to have those conversations help inform the prevention side of things too. Like, how do we get these conversations out there and start normalizing what these experiences are like for Black and Indigenous women in particular in the community?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, so I would just say that prevention is key. So that's the best case scenario is that people have access to healthy, nutritious foods. They're able to be physically active. They are avoiding using commercial tobacco products, being exposed to those, and that they can be able to. Fact is that family history plays a huge part in people's risk factors for them, and having things like health screenings, getting that regular routine primary care makes a difference so that they can have those things be caught before it turns into something as catastrophic as a heart attack or a stroke in some cases. So really prevention.
So one of the questions I asked was about the impact in race, income, geography. How do those factors affect access to healthcare resources and the experience based on race, income, and geography.
Do you want to start on that one, Sam?
Yeah, sure. Well, we know that there are significant health disparities that exist for Black and Indigenous women in Hennepin County, especially, but that's also the case across the U.S. That they're less likely to have managed, controlled hypertension, diabetes, and that's just a road towards something like a heart attack. And the treatment of the healthcare system, the mistrust of the healthcare system, these all interplay and make a really large influence, let's say, on the care that people are getting, the care that people are receiving.
I'll just add here too that part of the initiative and the work that we do is working within these systems. So the healthcare, our partners are healthcare systems and also community-based organizations, and trying to bridge some of the grassroots on the ground work that's happening with trusted clinical care. There's tons of mistrust, and rightfully so. The healthcare system and a lot of other places have helped build that. But I think there are places where women can get that care that's culturally relevant, that's really there to listen and respond to the needs specifically of the community. And I think part of what we're trying to do in the initiative is build the awareness of that network of who's out there, of where you can go, who does your mom, your sister, your friend, your neighbor trust with their care, and how can we make sure that that's the kind of care that's accessible to everybody.
It seems that one of the key words here is accountability. And I think you talked about how do we get individuals in a position where they understand the role they play, their practices, their knowledge or lack of knowledge, their access or lack of access, how those things all impact their level to be free from heart disease or their likelihood to be victims of heart incidents. And so, education, I think, is one of the things you want to do, information that leads people to be able to make, more and better informed decisions, personal accountability. But what about systemic accountability? Should we be having a conversation about how systems have failed women? It seems to me that if we just say, kind of blame it on the women for the disparities, we really have missed the boat, and we've let the somebody get out of jail free that ought to be locked up for gross mismanagement, neglect, and negative impact on the lives of women. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
And what do you think about it?
I think you're right on, quite honestly. And I think part of what's unique about this initiative coming out of somewhere like the county is that I think there's historical harm there that we have a responsibility to work towards undoing. What's unique about this pot of money, like Sam mentioned, that's being invested in community, is that it doesn't come, often in public health, it's like grant, we're pass through money. There's lots of rules and things that come with it. And this was really an opportunity that our Board of Commissioners passed that said, go to community and work with community and figure out how to do this in a way where we start to think about that harm and think about doing it differently and think about making these connections in different ways to start to address some of that. I think it's going to take a long time. This is huge, huge history. But I think it's a start, and I think I'm grateful to be a part of something like it.
So talk about the Women's Heart Health Initiative, how the county is using policy and education to make a difference, and how you engage and create public and private partnerships to extend and expand community engagement. And what role do you foresee for media and storytelling in raising awareness? What are your thoughts, Sam?
And before they answer, if I can just interject.
Sure.
Okay, because that's a great question. But I want to say that I think it's amazing work, first of all, in No, we run a free clinic at the Zara on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And when we open our doors, we've been running it for about a year, but in October of last year, we expanded it from just our partnership with the school to working with other Black women practitioners. And the response we got was overwhelming. We had 579 visits in just 70 days. And so we're on a break. we're going to return in a couple of weeks, trying to figure out how to sustain this. But because the demand was serious from African American or foundational Black Americans, they were 99.9% of the participants, and primarily women. But we did appreciate seeing men coming. And what was fascinating to me about it is that, yeah, we know that what we're doing this care model for our community, foundational Black Americans, et cetera. But the number of issues that came through the door, like to them, we were the doctors. And while we do have naturopathic doctors and all sorts of folks there, it was amazing to experience the level of vulnerability and safety that they felt to be in a space like that and to talk about so many issues. And we actually had responses for them from a naturopathic, standpoint, because we're, holistic there from a naturopathic practice. But what I thought about long after that was just how much more that's needed throughout the community, not as an event or a workshop, but as an institution, as a normalized pathway for folks to get help, because they obviously can't get some of the level of support that they receive through the traditional. So I'm thinking, how did this integrated thing works? And so that it just hit me as I'm listening to you, and I'm going, right on, because the heart health is tied to everything in life. And then how do you distinguish, right, from foundational Black women to just Black women who may be from other parts of the world? We had a whole history of heart health issues here that's foundationally different than just general health, right? It's tied to our struggle, the racism and the disenfranchisement for centuries, right? Continuation of it. We have, some of us feel like a permanent heartbreak, right? That leads to other issues. So I'm just wondering how you factor in just the sensitivities, just all these things I'm talking about that our communities carry with them, and how it works in your charge, your scope of work, your partnerships, how you talk about it, and anyways, that's it.
Wow. Yes, I agree with you, Kenya. I mean, there's so much there, and data would share that, would show that too, would demonstrate that.
Samantha, can you tilt your camera down a little bit, because you're at the bottom. You're a little bit more.
Okay. Can you see me better?
A little more.
Okay, hold on.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, and data would share that too, would support that for US-born Black African American people, that the health outcomes are much worse than for Black and African American folks who are not born here in the US. So there's something about being the descendant of the experience is it's present. But to your point, your question.
Well, let me jump in there, because another word that both of you have used, Kenya in one way and you in a way that's adjacent to that, I think, and that's the word normalized. And Kenya, I heard you say that one of the objectives is to normalize this expectation that we should be healthy and can be healthy, and that there are practices available to us that support our healthy walk through life and existence. And then Samantha, I think you and Abbie talked about the problem of communities having and society maybe having the ability to look at the trauma and its consequences as normal. And so you have people that are traumatized generationally, but they think that's just the way the world is, because that's all they've known, and because all the institutions around us reinforce that that's how you people are. And it's not us, the institution, it's you that is the problem. Does that make sense? I mean, that's the I'm looking at the words we're using. And so how does normalization look in terms of a characteristic of what has brought us here? And then how does it look in terms of getting us to where we need to be? And that's what I think is the outcome of the work that you're doing.
Mhm. Well, I would say one of the ways that I mean, that's a heavy, big, a really, really big task. Talking about um, systems level changes, fundamental institutional systems level changes.
Mhm.
I can talk about the campaign, so like the educational piece, the awareness piece for heart disease, heart health, for specifically the campaign that was created by African American, Black, and Indigenous women for the African American, Black, and Indigenous community here. We were able to partner with a local design firm called Blackbird Revolt, who really facilitated just a really lovely, beautiful series of conversations and co-created the messaging and things that would be relevant and resonate with communities that they're from. And I mean, as Abbie mentioned before, like women, like they're the pillars of their family and community depends on women. And so this campaign is one way of elevating and showing prioritize your health. Prioritize your health so you can be here for future generations.
I think another interesting thing to note about that is that the women in the campaign, there's 7 women who are from our community. And so it isn't paid actors or models doing this. It's real women in community talking about their experience and their families and how they take care of their health. And one of the women is actually Commissioner Angela Connolly, who's a Hennepin County commissioner, and has been very open about her own experience with a cardiac event. And she's really been an advocate and champion of this work in the county, and it wouldn't be happening without her. And I think it's brave and amazing to be front and center and put your personal experience out there and say, this is how we're going to start changing this conversation and changing who's having the conversation and changing who's leading the conversation. There's also a couple of providers who are a part of the campaign. So there's a family practice doctor from North Point Health and Wellness, Dr. Roshana Price-Isuk, who's a part of it and trying to talk about care and what it should be in a primary care system and how that system should be treating women who are coming in and looking for that support. And then there's 2 lovely women from the Indian Health Board who are nurses who also participated. And what I think is special is just the folks in our community being willing to be out there and a part of this conversation. And even since the campaign has launched, we've had community events and we've seen the women show up again and be willing to share their story in person, just like they shared their images and their quotes to be a part of it. And I think it's just care for community and wanting to make a change in how we are talking about such an important topic and issue.
I just put in the chat your website. I'm asking Jared if you'd go to the website and pull up some of the ads and have you walk us through some of the messages that you're putting out. They are powerful and beautiful, I think. Jared, as you get this link and you open it up, and we could sort of look at this. And so talk about, again, what the objectives are of the campaign. How are you doing? How are you doing it? Where you want to go? How do you measure its impact? And how do you resource this so that it's not just, so we got a lot of energy coming to the community when COVID hit, because COVID was such a deadly and fierce and imminent impact on the entire world. And our communities doubly impacted, I think. And so there was a lot of good information being generated to our communities with the spirit of trying to bring people into awareness and prevention. But I feared then that after the sizzle goes and the problem is sort of under control, where does that leave us? And it's back to business as usual, and that is no discussion, no work, no outreach. So I'm pleased to see Hennepin County being an exception to that and going forward with intentionality. But we got your website up. Should we go somewhere to see some of the images, or what should we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our website is where the landing page. So when you see these ads in community, this is where you go. It's hennepin.us/heart-beats. And so there's one image here, but what we're trying to direct the campaign to is some of the signs and symptoms, and then some of the trusted clinical partners so that folks can get real-time information. If I drop a different chat or a different link in there for Jared, could he open that, and then we could show some more? Okay.
You can pull this one down, Jared, and open the new one that she'll drop in. So I'd like to see some of the images. Yeah.
And we've also, in addition to the images that are in social media and billboards and Metro Transit buses, we also have had some in-person community events, because not everybody wants to, is able to, we want to have multiple ways and modes of getting resources out there and just sharing in general information about women's heart health. So we had an event in November in North Minneapolis, and then we had another one actually just last week. And they're in person, hearing from some of our clinical partners, just to share more about women's heart health and ways to get connected to primary care. And some of our partners are doing some really, I think they're fun stuff too. Like there's specifically Black women's groups that it's all about getting women outdoors. And so, there's a social connection, but also women are learning to canoe for the first time, and they're doing it all together. And, there are things like that too that are happening in addition to, the things that are occurring in a clinic with screenings.
So, a couple of questions for you. I mean, as someone who works in the space, I've never heard of you before, and so in this work, and I've been doing the work for a long time, and so I'm sure there's a lot of other groups out here too. How does people learn about you, and who do you work with? And I'm looking at the list of clinics, and it's more clinics. Well, there's a lot of other community groups. There's other ways that we've organized ourselves around how we care for ourselves, and how are you connecting to that? And so just how do people work with you and know about who you are, and what do you do exactly? Is it just the campaign of creating awareness, or just talk a little bit about that so that folks who are watching can, who may say, what, that's cool, I want to be a part of that, but I don't know what they do or how to connect in.
Yeah, sure. So on the website, you'll see the list of the clinical partners that we have. We also have partnered with some community-based organizations too. And so those are the places that that you could get connected with someone to do like a cooking class or, something like that. And we are, this initiative really kicked off at the sort of tail end of 2023. So what's that saying about you're building the plane as you're flying it? So we're fully invested in moving the work along, and shifting and changing programming as it makes sense with priorities and all of that.
Okay.
Let me shift focus a little bit. I often ask my guests to tell their personal story, how you come to the work. And let me start with you, Samantha. How do you come to the work? Whose shoulders do you stand on personally that supports you in bringing your passion to this work?
Sure. Well, I'll just share that I'm not originally from Minnesota. I'm originally from Atlanta, and I come from a long line of people who were service to community in many and all ways. My dad was in public health for gosh, going on 30 years now. So I guess I was always inspired, destined, if you will, to be in public health. And I got the great privilege of serving in Indian country for over a decade, and supported tribal clinics. And really, that's my lens. That's what that I'm working through. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. There's probably more to
That's
say.
great. Abbie, how about you?
I'll leave it there.
How do you come to this work, and whose shoulders do you stand on? What's the source of your passion?
Sure. I am born and raised in Minnesota, in Hopkins, actually. And my mother was a social worker and a teacher for many years. And my dad has always been part of social justice, telling us to stand up for what's right and make change and talk loud to our policymakers. And I think those two things combined have led me to public health and wanting to be in the community I'm working in. And I left for many years. I was in Seattle for a long time working in community clinics there, and then also in community clinics in Minneapolis before I came to the public health department. So I think that combined with really community-based healthcare, like yes, they were clinics, but each of these spaces had community arms, and really bridge that gap between community and clinic led me to this space.
Let me ask each of you, what do you fear with the current political environment, to the degree that you can talk about it? I know that wasn't in our script of our conversation, but this is natural. And everybody had to be aware of the president's posturing last night. I think it's, personally speaking for me, all I can see ahead is disaster that is intentional, but I also am not seeing a sense or spirit of defeat from my side of this equation. I see our people recognizing and walking within to reaffirm our strength, our ability, our sense of belonging, reminding ourselves that we're here because we're supposed to be here, and we're here to win. And winning means that we will not fall victim to the billionaire class that is attempting to consolidate power and wealth, not only here, but around the world. That's my editorial. But how do you in your work have to look at the shifting political wind right now? How do you, I mean, theoretically, the funding that you have for what you're doing now might be illegal a month from now. If they're saying you can't do anything dealing with diversity, well, disparity is just a few syllables away from diversity. Addressing disparities means that you're looking at something that they don't want you to look at. How do you deal with that? What do you say? What's the strategy? Kenya, you too. What do you think about how do we navigate that as we go ahead? Samantha, then Abbie, then Kenya.
Oh, great. You'll start me. Well, something that I find great comfort in is that Hennepin County has been very steadfast about what our values are, and we are still data-driven, evidence-based. We are still working towards striving to end disparities, not just health disparities, but educational disparities, justice disparities. That is still a commitment that the county has, and that those values align with mine, and we will continue to work towards that.
Abbie, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd echo what Sam said. I think our Board of Commissioners has been really clear that we put equity and disparity elimination at the forefront of what we do, and that's still the case. This initiative is a great example of that. It is supported with county dollars. There's been no shift and no change from our board in that approach. And so I hold on to things like that and we keep going.
And Kenya, what do you think? What's the environment mean for nonprofits and also businesses that are trying to create opportunity for our community?
I've worked with the county for many years, and one of its foundational leaders in teaching the county about what racial equity is and how to implement it in its planning strategies, and that's the bedrock of my work. To many of the leaders who run departments now, not so much of the actual board, although we did bang on the board too. And so the county is very new in their acceptance of race and equity as part of their work, with less than 8 years. So I think, for me, I think the challenge becomes governmental, with the government continuing to create programs that they manage and run. They, to me, pose a direct threat to the level of sustainability that our communities need long term. If what we do and what we have and what we need is dependent on the way government is structured to manage and create programs they operate, then of course, when Trump comes down with his hammer, it's gone. And so I think, to me, what I'm looking at from the private sector, if you will, I'm a for-profit, and I am working to expand the private market healthcare on the north side. We have one dentist, right? It's at North Point. I'm, a former board member for 6 years at North Point. So we've got to expand what healthcare looks like in our community too, right? So that we can expand who it reaches and how we use it. But it isn't sustainable through government systems. And so until government really, I think the most effective thing they can do is change how they work to support our capacity to self-actualize and own and strengthen what we're doing ourselves for the long term. That, to me, is a move that needs to be made as part of how, because we're going to be the leaders we have to be, of keeping this work long term. And how government leverages itself to support our communities, not lead our communities, but support us in leading ourselves is key. And that means not continuing to build programs that they manage and own and getting us to be participants in their stuff, but to support what we do. So we've got to reverse that. And that's a long-standing strategy of Minnesota that isn't true across how the country works. So I'd like to see more of that meeting in the middle, and how we support our sustainability long-term that way. So I'm looking at that as part of how we navigate where we are and what we're faced with. And that's a big fear that we have, is that once they shut down government, they shut down everything we have, because you only got so much money, that's county, that's not federal, that's state, that's not, and where's our philanthropic community? We're going to just depend on that. Well, then that's going to come down to workforce retention of the employees the system has, more than implementing resources into the programs and services we need. So I call for a rethinking and re-strategizing of how we're doing work as government and your relationships and partnerships and community, and how we think about this long term. That's my perspective.
It's awesome. I think we're at the end of the show. This has been a great conversation. I'll throw it out. I'll leave it with sort of what I've called an Al McFarlane-ism. And if you've heard me before, you've heard me say that too often we get the misery, they get the money. Meaning that our people are relegated to the problem side of the equation and are barred from the solution side. And the solution side of the equation is the side that attracts investment and provides employment, provides growth for participants. But at some level, the cynic in me says that there is a propensity to feel like it's easy to manage the problem because it becomes a living for us. It's a business. The antidote to that is to do what my grandma said, and to tell young Al McFarlane, boy, son, grandson, our health is our business. Mind your own business, and our health is our business. Let's look at the business of health, the economy of health. Everybody would love to see a cancer pill. take the pill, no cancer. Wonderful. But the road from here to there creates cities like Rochester, institutions like Mayo. If our community, North Minneapolis, is described as the place that has the greatest health disparities, instead of settling with that description, that analysis, how do we reframe this to say this is the place of greatest opportunity for wealth creation by serving our people in our community? And that is, we mind our business and we lead with the thought that our health is our business. Well, look, I'm dropping the mic with that. Thank you all for being here. And let's do this again. I think we need to just keep talking about it. And again, kudos to the county, kudos to you, Samantha and Abbie, for the work that you're doing. The campaign is a beautiful campaign. You're using that, I think, in Insight News, other places. We want to encourage you and support you doing that. But I think we want to also invite you to pay attention to what thought leaders like Kenya McKnight Ahad say, and that is that we need to enable, empower, and shift, move the theater of action to the community itself. Thank you guys so much. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.